Think for a moment about the last time you felt truly well. Not just not sick, but genuinely well, clear-headed, energetic, resilient. Now consider this. The conditions that create that state of well-being may be quite different from what you have been taught. For decades, we have operated under a simple assumption about health, that the body is a fortress to be defended, and that the path to longevity lies in eliminating threats. But a growing body of evidence suggests something else entirely. What if the secret to aging well is not about building higher walls, but about cultivating a richer inner world? What if the microbes you have spent a lifetime trying to eliminate are actually essential partners in your long-term health? This is not a new theory or a passing trend. It is a fundamental shift in understanding that has profound implications for anyone who wants to live their later years with strength and clarity. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The Long View. Rethinking Health for the Years That Matter Most. An essay on living well in an age of longevity. There is a question that arises quietly, often in the middle decades of life, and it does not demand an answer so much as it waits for one to form. The question is simply this: what does it mean to grow older well? For much of human history, this question was answered by circumstance rather than choice. People grew older as their bodies allowed, and the experience of aging varied tremendously from person to person, place to place, era to era. But something has changed in recent generations. The number of years available to the average person has expanded significantly, and with that expansion has come a new kind of uncertainty. We have added years to life, but we are still learning how to add life to those years. This is not a question about avoiding age. Age is not a condition to be cured or a problem to be solved. It is a natural process, as old as life itself, and it brings with it changes that are neither good nor bad, but simply real. The question is about the quality of those years, about whether the additional decades that modern life provides will be decades of engagement and capability or decades of decline and limitation. What follows is an exploration of that question, drawn from observations that span cultures, generations, and scientific disciplines. It is not a prescription or a program. It is a collection of perspectives, offered in the hope that they might prove useful to anyone considering how to navigate the long arc of their own life. Part 1. The nature of aging. To understand what it might mean to age well, it helps first to understand what aging actually is. This is less straightforward than it sounds, because aging is not one thing, but many things happening simultaneously. At the simplest level, aging is the gradual loss of resilience. A young body encounters stress, infection, injury, exertion, and returns to its previous state. An older body encounters the same stress and takes longer to recover, or does not quite return to where it started. This loss of resilience happens in every system: the cardiovascular system, the immune system, the nervous system, the musculoskeletal system. It happens at different rates in different people and in different systems within the same person, but it happens to everyone. This is not a design flaw. It is a consequence of the way living things are built. The processes that keep us alive, metabolism, cell division, energy production, generate byproducts that accumulate over time. Repairs are made, but they are never perfect. The body is not a machine that can be maintained indefinitely. It is more like a landscape that changes slowly with the weather and the seasons. The practical question is not how to stop this process, but how to influence its trajectory. The rate at which resilience declines is not fixed. It is shaped by countless factors, some beyond our control and some very much within it. The goal is not to live forever, but to live well for as long as we live. And that goal is more attainable than many people realize. Part 2. The body's hidden ecosystem. One of the most significant shifts in how scientists think about health has come from the recognition that the human body is not a solitary organism. It is a habitat, home to trillions of microorganisms that live on the skin, in the mouth, and most abundantly in the digestive tract. This collection of microbes, sometimes called the microbiome, is not a passive passenger but an active participant in nearly every aspect of health. The relationship between humans and their resident microbes is ancient. It has been developing for hundreds of millions of years, since long before there were humans to host them. These organisms have evolved alongside us, and we have evolved alongside them. They are not invaders or contaminants. They are partners in the ongoing process of staying alive. What do these microbes do? The list is long and still growing. They help digest food that human enzymes cannot break down, particularly the complex carbohydrates found in plants. They produce vitamins and other compounds that the body needs. They train the immune system from birth, teaching it to distinguish between genuine threats and harmless substances. They produce signaling molecules that affect mood, appetite, and even cognitive function. For much of modern history, this partnership was not well understood. The dominant view was that bacteria were enemies to be eliminated, and the goal of hygiene was to create a sterile environment. We now understand that this view was incomplete. Hygiene remains important. There are definitely harmful bacteria that cause disease, but the indiscriminate elimination of all bacteria has consequences that were not anticipated. Research comparing different populations has been particularly revealing. When scientists examined the microbial communities of people living in industrialized societies and compared them to those living more traditional lifestyles, they found consistent differences. The traditional populations, whether in the Amazon, rural Africa, or remote parts of Asia, harbored much greater diversity of microbes in their digestive systems. Their guts contained hundreds of species that were rare or absent in industrial populations. This difference in diversity is not abstract. It has measurable effects on health. Greater microbial diversity is associated with lower rates of allergic conditions, fewer autoimmune diseases, and better metabolic health. The mechanisms are complex, but the pattern is consistent. The human body evolved expecting a certain level of microbial exposure and microbial diversity. And when it does not receive that exposure, things can go wrong. For someone in midlife or beyond, this understanding has practical implications. The microbial community in your gut is not fixed. It changes in response to what you eat, where you go, what medications you take, and how you live. It can be diminished by antibiotics, poor diet, and excessive sanitation. It can also be supported and enriched by choices that increase diversity. This is not about returning to some imagined pre-industrial past. It is about recognizing that the relationship between humans and microbes is fundamental to health, and that supporting this relationship is one of the most practical things anyone can do for their long-term well-being. Part 3. The communication between gut and brain. The connection between the digestive system and the nervous system is more direct and more consequential than most people realize. These two systems do not operate independently. They are in constant communication through multiple channels, and the state of one continuously influences the state of the other. The digestive tract has its own nervous system, sometimes called the enteric nervous system. This network of neurons lines the entire digestive tract and contains more nerve cells than the entire spinal cord. It manages the complex process of digestion largely without conscious input, coordinating muscle contractions, enzyme secretion, and blood flow to extract nutrients from food. But the enteric nervous system does not work in isolation. It sends constant signals to the brain through the vagus nerve, a direct information highway that runs from the abdomen to the base of the skull. Through this connection, the brain receives updates on what is happening in the gut, what has been eaten, how digestion is proceeding, whether there is inflammation or infection. The communication runs both ways. The brain sends signals down to the gut, which is why stress can cause digestive symptoms and why the thought of food can trigger hunger. But the gut-to-brain signals may be even more important for understanding long-term health. When the digestive system is inflamed, when the microbial community is out of balance, when the gut lining is irritated, those signals reach the brain and affect how it functions. One way this happens is through immune signaling. The gut contains more immune cells than any other part of the body. It is constantly sampling the contents of the digestive tract and deciding what to allow through and what to keep out. When the immune cells in the gut detect a threat, they release signaling molecules that travel through the bloodstream. These molecules can cross the barrier that protects the brain and activate the brain's own immune cells. These brain immune cells, called microglia, are normally in a resting state. They monitor their environment and provide support to neurons. But when they receive activating signals from elsewhere in the body, they shift into a more alert mode. They begin releasing their own inflammatory molecules, which can affect how neurons function. This is not disease in the usual sense. It is not an infection or a tumor or a degenerative condition. It is a state of low-grade inflammation in the brain that can last for months or years. And it has consequences. People with chronic inflammation, whether from the gut or elsewhere, are more likely to experience difficulties with memory, attention, and mood. They are more likely to feel fatigued and less resilient to stress. The connection between gut health and brain health is not a theory. It is a well-documented biological reality, and it suggests that one of the most effective ways to support brain function over the long term may be to support the health of the digestive system and its microbial inhabitants. Part 4. What traditional populations can teach. The study of traditional populations has provided some of the most valuable insights into human health. These are groups of people who live in ways that resemble how humans live for most of evolutionary history: hunting, gathering, farming without industrial chemicals, and living in close contact with the natural environment. What researchers have found is that these populations are largely free of the chronic diseases that plague modern societies. Heart disease, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune conditions, these are rare or absent in traditional settings. When people from these populations adopt modern lifestyles, however, they quickly develop the same diseases as everyone else. This tells us that the problem is not genetic but environmental. The differences extend to the microbial level. When researchers analyzed the gut bacteria of traditional peoples, they found diversity that surpassed any previously documented samples. The richness of microbial species in these populations was far greater than in industrial populations, even those living on farms. This diversity comes from multiple sources. Traditional peoples eat a wide variety of plants, each with different fibers that feed different bacteria. They drink water from natural sources that contains environmental microbes. They have continuous contact with soil, with animals, with each other in ways that seed their bodies with diverse organisms. They rarely use antibiotics, and when they do, it is in plant-based forms that may affect microbes differently than pharmaceutical versions. The relevance of these observations is not that anyone should abandon modern life and move to the jungle. It is that the human body evolved in a context of high microbial diversity, and when that diversity is lost, health suffers. The challenge for those living in industrial societies is to find ways to maintain or restore diversity despite the conditions of modern life. This is not an all-or-nothing proposition. Every increase in diversity, every addition of a new plant food, every hour spent in nature, every reduction in unnecessary antibiotics contributes to a richer microbial community. The goal is not perfection but direction, moving toward greater diversity rather than away from it. Part 5. The question of cleanliness. The relationship between cleanliness and health is more complex than it first appears. On one hand, sanitation is one of the great achievements of modern civilization. Clean water, sewage systems, and basic hygiene have saved more lives than any medical intervention. On the other hand, there is evidence that excessive cleanliness, particularly the kind that involves sterilizing everything, may have unintended consequences. The key distinction is between cleaning and sterilizing. Cleaning removes dirt and reduces the number of microorganisms. Sterilizing aims to eliminate all microorganisms. These are different goals with different effects on health. Consider hand washing. Washing hands with regular soap and water removes harmful bacteria that could cause disease. This is clearly beneficial, but using antibacterial soaps or hand sanitizers kills bacteria more broadly, including many that are harmless or beneficial. The skin, like the gut, has its own microbial community, and repeatedly sterilizing it may disrupt that community in ways that matter. The same principle applies to the home environment. A clean home is not a problem, but a home where every surface is treated with antibacterial chemicals, where children never play in dirt, where windows are never opened, may be too clean in ways that affect the developing immune system. Observational studies have found that children in homes where bleach is used regularly have higher rates of respiratory infections. This does not prove that bleach causes infections. It could be that families who use bleach are different in other ways, but it raises questions. The immune system needs exposure to microorganisms to develop properly. When it does not get that exposure, it may overreact to harmless substances or underreact to real threats. For adults in midlife and beyond, the same principles apply, though the stakes are different. The immune system is already developed, but it continues to be shaped by the environment. Excessive sterility may contribute to the low-grade inflammation that becomes more common with age. Moderate exposure to the microbial world, through gardening, walking in nature, or simply spending time outdoors, may help maintain immune balance. The practical approach is not to abandon hygiene, but to think about it more carefully. Soap and water are sufficient for most situations. Antibacterial products can be reserved for times when they are genuinely needed. Time outdoors, contact with soil, and exposure to the natural world are not just recreation, but health practices in their own right. Part 6. Food as information. The way food affects the body goes far beyond calories and nutrients. Food is also information. It carries signals that tell the body what is happening in the environment and how to respond. This is most obvious with plant foods. Plants cannot run away from threats, so they have evolved chemical defenses. Many of these chemicals, the compounds that give plants their color, taste, and smell, are not nutrients in the conventional sense. They are signaling molecules that affect the biology of anything that eats them. When you eat a plant, you are not just consuming carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. You are consuming hundreds of compounds that interact with your cells in complex ways. Some of these compounds activate genes that produce antioxidant enzymes. Others influence inflammatory pathways. Others affect how cells repair damage or dispose of waste. This is why the quality of food matters as much as the quantity. A diet of processed foods, stripped of these signaling compounds, provides energy but not information. A diet rich in whole plants provides both. The body uses this information to regulate its own processes, and over time, the cumulative effect of this information shapes health outcomes. The diversity of plant foods is particularly important. Different plants contain different signaling compounds. Eating a wide variety ensures exposure to the full range of these molecules. This is not about any single superfood or magic ingredient. It is about the collective effect of many different compounds working together. For those concerned about aging, this perspective offers a practical approach. Instead of focusing on what to eliminate, though eliminating some things is certainly helpful, the focus can be on what to include. Each meal is an opportunity to add more variety, more colors, more different plants, over days and weeks and years. This accumulation of variety supports the body in ways that are difficult to achieve through any other means. Part 7. The metabolic connection. Metabolism is the process by which the body converts food into energy and builds the molecules it needs to function. It is not a single process, but thousands of interconnected processes, and its efficiency changes with age. One of the most common changes with aging is a gradual decline in insulin sensitivity. Insulin is the hormone that tells cells to take up glucose from the bloodstream. When cells become less sensitive to this signal, glucose remains in the blood longer, and the body produces more insulin to compensate. Over time, this can lead to a state of chronic high insulin that affects many systems. High insulin is not benign. It promotes inflammation, encourages fat storage, and may accelerate the aging process itself. It is also closely connected to brain function. The brain is the most energy-intensive organ in the body, consuming about 20% of the body's calories despite being only 2% of its weight. It relies on a steady supply of glucose, and when glucose regulation is poor, brain function suffers. People with insulin resistance often notice this in daily life. After a meal high in refined carbohydrates, blood sugar spikes and then crashes. During the crash, concentration flags, energy drops, and mood can sour. Over time, these fluctuations may contribute to more persistent cognitive changes. The metabolic connection extends to the gut microbiome as well. The bacteria in the gut influence how the body handles glucose. Some bacterial species promote insulin sensitivity, others promote insulin resistance. The composition of the microbial community is shaped by diet, and in turn, it shapes metabolic health. This is another example of the interconnectedness that characterizes the aging body. No system operates in isolation. The gut affects metabolism. Metabolism affects the brain. The brain affects behavior, and behavior affects the gut. Interventions that support any part of this system tend to support the whole system. Part 8. The fever question. Fever is one of the oldest and most universal responses to infection. When the body detects a pathogen, it raises its internal temperature, creating an environment less hospitable to the invader and more effective for immune function. For much of human history, fever was seen as part of healing, not something to be eliminated. Traditional medical systems in many cultures have regarded fever as the body's way of burning off illness, and they have been cautious about interfering with it. Modern medicine has taken a different approach. Fever is routinely treated with medications that bring it down, often regardless of its height or duration. This practice is so common that many people assume fever itself is harmful and must always be suppressed. The research suggests a more nuanced view. Fever is an adaptive response. It accelerates immune activity and inhibits pathogen replication. Suppressing it may prolong illness in some cases. The standard medical guidelines recognize this, recommending that fever be treated only when it causes significant discomfort or exceeds certain thresholds, not automatically whenever it appears. For adults, the same principles apply. A moderate fever during an illness is not necessarily a problem. It is the body doing what it evolved to do. The decision to treat it should be based on how the person feels, not on the number on the thermometer. This is not to say that fever should never be treated. Very high fevers can be dangerous, and anyone who appears seriously ill should seek medical attention. But for routine fevers in otherwise healthy adults, allowing the body to do its work may be the wiser course. The broader lesson is about respecting the body's innate intelligence. The body has been managing infections for millions of years. long before there were medications to help it. Its responses are not mistakes. They are solutions that have been refined over countless generations. Sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is get out of the way. Part 9. The chemical environment. Modern life has introduced thousands of new chemicals into the environment. Many of these are harmless, but some have effects on human biology that are still being understood. For those in midlife and beyond, who have accumulated decades of exposure, this is a relevant consideration. Agricultural chemicals are one category of concern. Pesticides are designed to be biologically active. They kill insects by disrupting their nervous systems. They can have effects on human nervous systems as well, though usually at much higher doses than people are exposed to through food. Research has found that people with higher levels of pesticide residues in their bodies have higher rates of certain health problems. When people switched to organic diets, the levels of these residues dropped significantly within days. This suggests that diet is a major source of exposure and that dietary choices can reduce it. The goal is not to eliminate all exposure, which is probably impossible in the modern world. It is to reduce the load where possible, recognizing that cumulative effects matter. Choosing organic for foods that tend to have higher residues, washing produce thoroughly, and eating a varied diet all help. Other chemicals of concern include those in plastics, personal care products, and household cleaners. Many of these have been shown to affect hormone function in animal studies, and their effects on humans are an active area of research. Reducing use of these products where alternatives exist is a prudent approach. The larger point is that the body exists in an environment, and that environment matters. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the products we use, all of these shape health outcomes over time. Attention to the quality of the environment is not paranoia, but common sense. Part 10. Movement and resilience. Physical activity is one of the most consistently effective interventions for healthy aging. Its benefits extend to every system in the body and operate through multiple mechanisms. At the simplest level, movement maintains the musculoskeletal system. Muscles that are not used shrink. Bones that are not stressed lose density. Joints that are not moved through their full range become stiff. These changes are not inevitable consequences of age. They are consequences of disuse, and they can be prevented or delayed by regular activity. But movement does more than maintain structure. It also sends signals throughout the body that affect metabolism, immune function, and even gene expression. Contracting muscles release molecules that travel to other tissues and influence how they function. Some of these molecules have anti-inflammatory effects. Some improve insulin sensitivity. Some support brain health. The relationship between movement and the brain is particularly important. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients. It stimulates the production of factors that support the growth and survival of neurons. It may even promote the formation of new neurons in certain brain regions, a process once thought impossible in adults. For those concerned about cognitive health, this is one of the most robust findings in all of aging research. People who are physically active throughout life have lower rates of cognitive decline. They maintain better memory and executive function. They are less likely to develop dementia. The effect is consistent across many studies and many populations. The type of movement matters less than the fact of moving. Walking, gardening, swimming, dancing, lifting, all of these count. The goal is to be active regularly, to challenge the body in different ways, and to find forms of movement that are sustainable over the long term. Part 11. The social dimension. Humans are social animals. This is not just a pleasant observation, but a biological fact. The presence of others affects the nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system. Social connection is not optional for health. It is fundamental. Research on longevity has consistently found that people with strong social ties live longer, healthier lives. This effect is independent of other factors like diet, exercise, and smoking. It is as robust as any finding in public health. The mechanisms are multiple. Social connection reduces stress, lowering levels of hormones that can damage tissues over time. It provides meaning and purpose, which affect motivation and behavior. It creates opportunities for physical activity and mental engagement. It may even influence the immune system directly, with lonely people showing different immune profiles than socially connected people. For those in midlife and beyond, maintaining social connections requires intentionality. Work and family responsibilities that once provided automatic social contact may diminish. Friends may move away or pass away. New connections must be cultivated, and old ones must be maintained. This is not always easy, but it is important. The effort required to stay connected, to reach out, to make plans, to show up, is effort well spent. Relationships are not just nice to have. They are necessary for health. Part 12. Purpose and engagement. Beyond social connection, there is the question of purpose. Why get up in the morning? What makes life worth living? These are philosophical questions, but they have biological consequences. Research has found that people with a strong sense of purpose live longer. They are less likely to develop chronic diseases. They recover better from illness and injury. They maintain cognitive function longer. The effect is consistent across cultures and age groups. Purpose does not have to be grand or world-changing. It can be caring for a family member, pursuing a hobby, volunteering in the community, tending a garden, creating something. What matters is that it provides direction and meaning, that it gets you out of bed in the morning. For those in the second half of life, purpose often shifts. The purposes of earlier years, building a career, raising children, may no longer be central. New purposes must emerge. This is not a loss, but a transition, an opportunity to engage with life in different ways. The connection between purpose and health is not mystical. People with purpose take better care of themselves. They are more resilient to stress. They have reasons to stay healthy and reasons to recover when they get sick. Purpose mobilizes the body's resources in ways that vague good intentions do not. Part 13. Patterns and principles. Looking across all of this information, certain patterns emerge. These are not rules or prescriptions, but principles that can guide thinking about health in the second half of life. The first principle is diversity. The body thrives on variety. Diverse foods feed diverse microbes. Diverse movements build diverse capacities. Diverse experiences maintain cognitive flexibility. Diversity is resilience. The second principle is connection. Nothing in the body operates in isolation. The gut connects to the brain to the immune system, the immune system to everything. Interventions that support one part tend to support the whole. Problems in one part tend to affect the whole. The third principle is respect for evolved biology. The body was not designed for the modern world. It was shaped by millions of years of conditions very different from those most people now inhabit. When modern life diverges too far from those conditions, problems arise. Bringing life back toward alignment with evolved expectations is often helpful. The fourth principle is cumulative effects. Health is not determined by single choices, but by thousands of choices repeated over time. A single healthy meal does little. Years of healthy meals do much. The same is true for movement, for sleep, for social connection, for everything. Direction matters more than perfection. The fifth principle is individual variation. What works for one person may not work for another. Bodies differ. Environments differ. Histories differ. General principles are useful, but they must be applied with attention to individual circumstances. Part 14. Practical approaches. How do these principles translate into daily life? What does it actually look like to live in alignment with what we know about health and aging? Food is a good place to start. Each meal can be an opportunity to increase diversity. More vegetables, more colors, more different plants. Not because any single plant is magical, but because variety itself is beneficial. Meals built around whole foods rather than processed ones automatically contain more of the signaling compounds the body needs. Movement can be woven into daily life rather than confined to scheduled exercise. Walking instead of driving for short trips. Taking stairs instead of elevators. Gardening. Cleaning. Playing with grandchildren. All of this counts. The goal is to be active throughout the day, not just for 30 minutes at the gym. Time outdoors can be prioritized, not just for exercise, but for exposure to the natural world. Soil, plants, fresh air, these are not luxuries, but necessities. The microbial diversity they provide cannot be obtained any other way. Social connection can be cultivated. Regular contact with friends and family. Participation in groups and communities. Reaching out rather than waiting to be reached. These efforts pay dividends in health and happiness. Purpose can be pursued. Not as a duty, but as an exploration. What matters? What engages? What makes time disappear? The answers change over time. And that is fine. The important thing is to keep asking the questions. Sleep can be respected. The body repairs itself during sleep. The brain consolidates memories during sleep. The immune system functions better with adequate sleep. Protecting sleep time is protecting health. Stress can be managed. Not eliminated. Stress is part of life, but modulated. Practices that calm the nervous system, meditation. Deep breathing. Time in nature. Time with loved ones. Help prevent the chronic activation that damages tissues over time. Part 15. The question of change. For anyone in midlife or beyond, the question arises, is it too late? Have the decades of living already determined the outcome? The answer is no. The body remains responsive throughout life. Change is possible at any age. The mechanisms that support health, diet, movement, social connection, purpose, work in the 8th decade as they do in the 4th. The effects may be smaller or slower, but they are real. This is not about reversing aging. It is about influencing its trajectory. Small changes in direction, sustained over time, lead to large differences in destination. The person who adds more vegetables, walks more, and stays connected to friends will have a different aging experience than the person who does not, even if both start from the same place. The challenge is not lack of time, but the difficulty of change. Habits are hard to modify. Patterns are hard to break. The body resists disruption, not out of malice, but out of inertia. Change requires effort, and effort requires motivation. The motivation may come from many sources. Concern about future health, desire to remain independent, wish to see grandchildren grow up, love of life itself. Whatever the source, it can be tapped and cultivated. The changes themselves do not need to be dramatic. Small steps, consistently taken, accumulate. A 10-minute walk added each day. One more vegetable at each meal. One phone call to a friend each week. These small changes, over years, become large changes. Part 16. The long view. There is a tendency in modern culture to think of health in terms of interventions. Take this supplement. Follow this diet. Do this exercise. And the problem will be solved. This approach has its place, but it misses something fundamental. Health is not a problem to be solved. It is a process to be lived. It unfolds over decades, shaped by thousands of choices and countless circumstances. There is no single intervention that will guarantee a long and healthy life. There is only the ongoing work of living well, day by day, year by year. This work is not always easy. It requires attention and effort. It requires accepting that some things are beyond control and focusing on what is within it. It requires letting go of perfection and aiming instead for direction. But it is also deeply satisfying. There is something right about caring for the body that carries you through life. There is something meaningful about making choices that honor the future while engaging fully in the present. There is something peaceful about accepting the reality of aging while doing what you can to shape its course. The years ahead are not guaranteed. None of us knows how many we have. But the quality of those years, however many there are, is partly in our hands. The choices made today will influence how tomorrow feels. The patterns established now will shape the decades to come. This is not a burden, but an opportunity. It is a chance to participate actively in your own life, to make decisions that reflect your values and priorities, to create conditions that support the person you want to be. It is a chance to live, not just to exist. Part 17. A final thought. There is a story told about an old man planting a tree. A young person passing by asks why he bothers. The tree will not mature for decades, long after the old man is gone. What is the point? The old man replies that he is not planting the tree for himself. He is planting it for those who will come after. He is participating in something larger than his own life. He is contributing to a future he will not see. This story contains a truth about aging well. The point is not just to extend your own life, but to be part of something that continues beyond it. To plant seeds that others will harvest. To share what you have learned. To leave things better than you found them. This perspective changes the experience of aging. It turns the later years from a period of decline into a period of contribution. It provides purpose that does not depend on personal capability. It connects you to the flow of human life that extends backward into the past and forward into the future. The body will age. That is certain. But the spirit need not. The capacity for growth, for learning, for connection, for contribution, these can continue to the end. They are not limited by physical decline. They may even deepen with time. This is the long view of health. Not just adding years to life, but adding life to years. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just enduring the later decades, but embracing them as a unique and valuable stage of human existence. The research supports this view. The practices that support physical health also support meaning and purpose. The habits that preserve function also preserve engagement. The choices that extend life also enrich it. There is no single path that works for everyone. Each person must find their own way, guided by their own values and circumstances. But the principles are the same. Diversity, connection, respect for biology, attention to cumulative effects, openness to individual variation. These principles are not new. They have been known, in one form or another, for thousands of years. What is new is the scientific evidence that supports them, the detailed understanding of how they work, and the urgency of applying them in a world where chronic disease has become the norm. For those in the second half of life, the opportunity is clear. The years ahead can be years of health and engagement. They can be years of contribution and connection. They can be years of growth and meaning. This is not guaranteed. It requires attention and effort. But it is possible. And it is worth pursuing. Not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life touches yours. The long view of health is simply this. We are all in this together. For the whole of our lives. And the choices we make echo far beyond ourselves. The single most important idea to carry forward is this. Your body was never meant to be a fortress, isolated and defended. It was meant to be a garden, cultivated and diverse, in constant conversation with the world around you. The choices you make each day, what you eat, where you go, how you move, who you connect with, are not separate interventions, but threads in a single fabric. They weave together to create the texture of your later years. We would be honored to hear what this perspective stirs in you. What practices have you found that support your own long-term well-being? What questions remain? Share your thoughts in the comments, if you are moved to do so. And if this way of thinking about health resonates, there is more wisdom waiting in the library. Subscribe so you do not miss the next chapter. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.